Welcome to the Tough Fish Show. I am so excited to bring to you Stella Wilde. Stella, thank you so much for being on the show.
Oh, Jen, thank you so much for having me here. I'm really excited.
Me too. And I would love for you to start with, how did you get into writing?
Um, it's just always been a part of my life. My earliest memory is of writing. When I was 3 years old, my mother used to bring home, scrap pieces of paper from work. And you remember those big, thick leaded pencils we used to have as kids? I remember holding one of those and writing on these green sheets of paper, these like swirly things. I was writing. Of course, I didn't know what I was writing, but I was writing. So that's my earliest memory. And then I had an old typewriter. I was writing plays when I was 11 and 12, and I'd that's the Aries in me. I'd make my friends act them out on the playground. The plays that I wrote, they were the starring characters, of course. So yeah, it's just, ever since I remember, I've always kept diaries, like from a very young age. I was writing poems in second grade. So yeah.
Oh, I love that. I love that so much, because when something starts young like that, and you're doing it because it's fun to you, like you're using your imagination and you're seeing where your curiosity will take you, that's when that joy is coming through. Even if you're writing something that's a little, heavy in some ways, or, a thriller or what have you, still there's a joy there because it's you expressing yourself. It's you trying something different, trying experimenting in a sense.
Yeah, it was a lot of companion for me because I was an only child for 11 years. I spent a lot of time alone in my room, reading, writing, drawing, creating. So it's just something I've always done. It's been a part of my life for a very long time.
I love that. So you mentioned poems,
Yeah.
and I know that you have, you've published poetry before. So,
Yes.
and that's before the current book that's out. But what is it about poetry that helped you to just, I guess, really want to follow that through and then ultimately create a book, to publish a book of poetry?
That's a really good question. I have so many interests. I don't know. I'm kind of just a little crazy. I got so many things I'm interested in. But one of the things I've always wanted to do is make movies, make films. And when I was taking a course in poetry in one of my graduate programs, it was like this epiphany that went off in my head when one of my instructors said, writing a poem is like, capturing a scene in film. And he had this little film strip down the side of the page. And he's like, for every line of your poem, create a frame from a film. And I was like, oh my God, this is like mind blowing, right? Like, I was like, that's why I love poetry so much. It's like this mini vignette. It's like this little scene from a film, right? That combines the visual, the auditory, the sound of the words and the lines, the imagery, the feeling, it's very evocative of all those things. And then it's a little mysterious, right? It's very Neptunian, right? Film. It's very Piscean, Neptunian. It's a little mysterious and like, it's like, this is, yes, yes, yes. So that's one impetus. And then of course, as like this creative self-expression, getting out your feelings about different things and then just playing around with words, is really fun. And so I hope I answered the question.
You did. And actually, you got me thinking about, okay, so as you know, I published children's books, but they were poems first. And
Mhm.
how you describe them is exactly what happens, that I saw them in my mind as a film first and then wrote what I saw, and it needed to come back in a line. So hearing you say that actually was like, oh, wow, that's what I was doing. Oh my gosh, that's so cool to hear it said back to me in that way. So that's really, really cool. But to your point, it's that, but it was cathartic. It sounds like it was a way of processing in its own way. And I think writing, when it's done that way, is such a beautiful thing, because it can really help you sift through. It can help you make decisions. It can help you see from a different perspective something. So, that's kind of what I'm hearing too with what you were doing.
Yeah, I've always been drawn to the more confessional side of poetry. because I also like memoir writing too. So they like kind of go hand in hand. I tried fiction writing for a while, but I was not cut out for it. But because I don't know, maybe I'm too, not that I'm self-referential, but I filter a lot through my, the lens of my personal experience. But catharsis without art, that belongs in your journal, right? Like it needs to have some sort of form, art, aesthetic, behind it. So, but a lot of poems, I mean, they spring from that initial like journal entry or free write entry or, something like that. But
yeah, I love how you just phrased that too, a free write, because sometimes even in editing, sometimes I'll read something. And to your point about memoir in particular, I'll read something and I'll write a note to my person and say, I know you needed to write this. I'm glad you did. This was for you to help you process. You need to go back and rework this. And how does this serve your reader? How is this helping your reader? Even though it's your story, how are you helping them? So hearing you say that is just, it's so helpful because it helps a writer who is trying to discern when they can take that piece, or if they can take that piece that they've been journaling, and when to move it forward. So that guidance right there is just so helpful and so instrumental. And one of the things I have been noticing that you've said as we've been chatting is the referencing of different planets, for instance, or actually different zodiac signs. So Neptune, Pisces, that type of thing. Tell me where that's coming from.
Well, it's definitely coming from my background in astrology, which started when I was 12. So right around the time I was similarly like writing all these plays and short stories and really getting into my early days, my early craft. I just have always loved astrology and have studied it on my own for many, many years now. And yeah, I mean, there's definitely certain indicators in a person's natal chart for being involved with writing. Absolutely. The creative arts.
Really? Like what?
Well, you could have a third house sun, definitely, as I do, or third house moon, third house Mercury in Gemini, North Node in Gemini. That's just a few off the top of my head. Fifth house is sometimes involved as well. Mercury in the first house. So there's a whole bunch of different aspects. Those are just some off the top of my head. And it doesn't mean if you don't have those, you can't be a writer, but I'm just saying there's certain things that in a chart that really indicate somebody's probably going to be very involved with the expressive arts.
I love that. And I love that you just rattled that off as though, what's your favorite cup of tea? So, how does that love of astrology and writing, how does that come through for you? How has that showed up for you?
What do you mean exactly?
Well, for instance, you did publish a book.
Oh, yes. Yes, I did. I love writing about astrology because it is such a metaphor laden activity or pursuit, right? Or study. Like there's about the planets, they all have these different characteristics, and then they have all the deep mythology and stories behind them, which are all just metaphors about our life's journey, right? All the different things. So it really lends itself to using my poetic consciousness, if you will, and tying it all together with the writing, but then also using my very practical, I got a lot of practical in my chart, a lot of practical, user-friendly stuff too. So my Mercury in Taurus, which likes to give a lot of examples, pairs nicely with my strong Neptune in my chart and my strong Venus in Pisces. Like it combines with this poetry and the practical to create this very user-friendly, but also fun, like way to approach and interpret the astrology.
What I'm also hearing is love. What I'm hearing is a love that's coming through that, whether it is the poems or what, and I say that meaning, I know you publish poems. So if it came through as one of the poems or in those books, or if it's in your astrology books, it's all stemming from love, a love of following your passions, following your curiosity, and seeing where that takes you, and trusting your voice to do that. And sometimes when you hear that, trusting your voice, it's not something that you can, a lot of times it's not something you just automatically do. Sometimes it's one of those things you almost learn to do. And writing can help you do that because you're trying things on when you're writing out something. You might try it written one way and realize, this isn't working for me. I can't get behind this, or rewrite it. And you find that starts to help a little bit more. So that's actually a lot of the things that I'm hearing is the love and the owning and following your voice.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it too, both of those, astrology and writing, are beautiful vehicles for self-exploration, right? And self-knowledge. So, I mean, because I've been a big journal. I mean, I love journaling. Like that's also one of my loves from very, very early days in my life. Like I said, of keeping in diaries since I was like in 5th grade or whatever. So I don't know where that original one went, but I wish I could find it because I'm sure it would be a riot if I reread it today. But but both of those, I mean, it's so beautiful to get to know yourself, and figure yourself out, be honest with yourself, make plans for yourself through the writing, through the astrology, really share your gifts with the world, figure out what your gifts are. I mean, both of those are excellent modalities for doing that. They go hand in hand as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, I would agree with that. And to your point about how journaling helps with that, I mean, really, if you think of journaling as an opportunity for just it to be you and the page, that's really it. You don't have to share it with anyone else, but sometimes that's where you can flesh out. Maybe it's a story concept. Maybe it's you're working through a decision and you just need to write out. So what happens if I make this decision? Let me just write out how I'd feel about how this would go. For instance, maybe that writer is faced with, do I go traditional or do I self-publish my book? Well, you can research and you can ask questions, but if you really feel like you're at that fork in the road, writing them out, saying, okay, let me write out how it would feel to self-publish this and what it would take and what am I afraid of and what would success feel like? And on the other hand, write it out that way for traditional and see how those questions get answered. Sometimes just that writing helps you to do that.
Absolutely. I think a lot of people run away from themselves. They don't want to face themselves, and I mean, I think that's one of the greatest joys is to face yourself, to be honest with yourself. At the end of the day, this is who you have. This is who you are. This is who who you have. Why not get to know yourself? Why are you running away from yourself? Like face yourself, dig in deep, like figure out what you truly want and go for it, right? And writing can really help you with that. I mean, you could read an astrology chart, you could do a tarot reading for somebody, you could give them all this interesting stuff, right, to help them, guide them, give advice, whatever. But at the end of the day, if they cannot face themselves and face, what they truly want, what's motivating them, what's going on in here, then all of that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the most valuable things about keeping a journal is it forces you to be really present with yourself, to be honest with yourself, and to own your life, own your voice, own your dreams, all of those things, and have accountability to yourself too, and God knows I'm not perfect by any means. Please, I'm not. But journals kept me very honest with myself. It's important, I think.
Yeah, I do too. I journal too. So I love hearing you say back as to all the different things as to how it adds value and how it can help. So when you wrote your latest book, tell me about that process, because I think I remember you telling me 21 days.
I know how to write a book in 21 days.
Yes. So talk to me about that.
So I have a very particular process that I use with my writing big projects. And I call it my immersion process. So I have to be immersed in the thing that I am writing about. So for this latest book, what I did is I went to the local coffee shop. It's like the Friends coffee shop. And I sat there with just a notebook and my fountain pen, and I had my phone in one hand and my lovely coffee and snack. We got to have that, right? And I just scrolled through the ephemeris, which is a timetable for the astrological transits, right? So I scrolled through that for the whole year. I just kept going through each thing, picking out all the most important transits and actually writing them down in my notebook, handwriting them down. And this was a way, I find it very valuable to write by hand, because it really connects the brain, the hand, the memory, all of those things, right? And that was my immersive process to get inside the planetary energies. Okay, so they really became a part of me. And then I knew I had written a book in 2020 for 2020's astrology, and I set up this book in the same way, the same structure. So going through, starting at the beginning of the year and then going through the transits in kind of in order for the year ahead. But that was the initial process, is that just immersion in the energies. And one time I ghost wrote a book about soccer, actual, men playing soccer on the field type thing. And for this particular person I was ghost writing the book for, I said, I got to go to a game. I can't, how do you expect me to write about this just from my head and what I think I've seen on TV? No. And so I went to this soccer game. It was amazing. And it just put me in the zone of the energy. Like, you felt the vibe, like, just, it was perfect. And then I wrote the book in like that.
You have described how I write. I have to be in that space. And I also tend to write like start to finish somewhat quickly, in the context of it's just getting it out, not always in order, but still writing it and then going back and adding as I need and reorganizing and stuff. So hearing you describe that, you're showing that a writing process can look very different. Sometimes going and doing the thing, like going to the soccer game, it was a part of the process, but it may not always seem like that at first, because it's not you handwriting, it's not you at the computer or researching something. It's a different form of research. It was a different form of research.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what would you say to somebody starting out, or maybe they're stuck with what they're writing and they just can't seem to get out of their heads as to the idea is not coming, or it's that messy middle that's very frustrating? What would you say to them to help them kind of get out of that rut and to keep going?
Go to the gym and take a kickboxing class. That's what I would say. The best antidote for getting out of your head is getting into your body. So, all right, so take a Les Mills body combat class. Go Google that online, okay? I'm not an affiliate with Les Mills or anything, but that's the classes that I've taken. And you're not punching anybody. You're just, and when you're doing that class, or go take a spin class, or go for, walking. I mean, the romantic poets, right? They used to like to go for long walks in the moors or whatever. But I think you need something a little more heart pumping, like, so that you can't think about anything else. That is one of the best things to do, is get out of your head and get into your body. But yeah, no, definitely. I mean, something that gets your blood pumping and gets your juices flowing in other ways. And you often find that'll clear out the blockage of energy. Absolutely.
I agree with that, because what I will do a lot of times is literally go do something else. When I do that, it's a lot of times I might be going to cook, or I might go make something that I haven't made before. So I'm focused on something else, but my phone or a notebook is nearby. And then inevitably something starts to come through and I'll jot it down, but I'm working on just doing something else. And to your point, a lot of times it is with my hands, and I'm chopping veggies, I'm stirring something, I'm kneading something. Chopping seems to be something that's very helpful. It seems like the more frustrated, the more I chop. So, I mean, but it helps to shift your focus, really. It's another way of getting into your body, because you're doing something else altogether.
Yeah. Or if you like another modality, like do that instead. Like, I love making collages. So I will go and do that also, because it's more visual. I'm just in the flow of moving. I do it online. I do digital collage, moving things around and doing different stuff. And that is a whole other process. So, again, it's kind of getting me out of doing something else, getting me out of that thorny problem, and then using my time in a productive way. I guess that's my Capricorn. I like to be productive.
So how did
So
you know?
making something.
So how did you know when your book was ready and not second guess it, because it did come together fairly quickly. Some books take years to write, some books take a few months, some books, take even longer than, a few years. They might take way much longer. And so how did you know that after 21 days you said, yeah, this is it. I'm ready. This is good. This is what I want. It doesn't need more. It's not, nothing needs to be taken away. How did you know?
Because it was finished. Which sounds like a smart alecky answer, but I mean, I it's different because this is nonfiction and it has a structure, right? Because it has these certain planetary transits that are happening. Actually, I did think it was finished at one point, and then I was like, no, wait a minute, it needs something else at the end to kind of wrap it up. So like I ended with, I think it was Venus retrograde in the book. And then I was like, but okay, but what's after that? Like what's next, right? So then I was like, oh, let's have a summary at the end of like kind of the yearly energies for each sign. Because I did the month by month and the lucky days, but then I was like, it still needed something else. So I put in kind of like a summary, mini horoscope summary for each sign and some affirmations for each sign as well for the year ahead. And then it felt complete. It just needed something to kind of tie it all up at the end.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then once I had that, I was like, okay. And then my typical process, usually I go through at least 3 copy edits usually. But that's because I have a background, like we've said, in writing and stuff. So copy editing, like, that's easy for me, because it comes out a lot of the time, like the grammar and junk like that comes out the right way the first time. I'm just looking for more like typos, so I don't need like heavy copy editing. But it usually takes 3 passes. That's my average.
So when you knew that it was ready and you're ready to take that to the next piece and to format and to do the cover and such, I love that you designed your own cover. And I realize not everyone feels like they have that skill set, but if somebody was contemplating that, what are some tips that you have? Because I think your cover is so pretty and it's eye-catching, it's pretty. So I'm curious as to what tips might you have for that?
Get yourself a Canva account. I use Canva. I do have the pro version, but the free version works just fine. And just start playing around with colors, like figure out what kind of colors you like what is the main kind of, imagery. I was a little uncertain at first because Saturn's on the cover, right? And Saturn is known to be just like kind of heavy, responsible energy and stuff. I'm like, do I want Saturn on my cover? I don't know. What should I do with that? But then I was like, no, Saturn's moving into Pisces. Like this is good that it's, that Saturn's on the cover. So play around with like the overall vibe, in other words, like the feeling. So that's what I'm saying. Like at first I was like, I don't know about Saturn. And then I thought, no, he deserves to be on the cover. It's important. So yeah, just play around with color and vibe and that type of thing. And see what your eye is drawn to. And trust your intuition. That's another thing, like when you're doing visual collage like that. And often with that, it's like copy editing. You come back to it a couple of times, like, because you shift things around, you realize, that's not the feeling I was going for,
And those tips apply even if you've hired a cover designer. If somebody else has laid that cover out for you, which is fantastic. Not everyone has that graphic skill set. I don't necessarily have that. But I know when I get the cover back, is this what I was going for? Does this feel like the intent, the message? Does this bring excitement? Do I feel like a smile when I see it, like, oh, I'm excited about this? Or does it feel like, something's missing? And then you have to figure out how to articulate it. But you're right, trusting yourself. You'll feel it. You'll know if you're on the right path, or if that's it, you'll feel it. So I love that you said that. So
yeah.
what is coming up? Now that this book is out, what is coming up?
What is coming? Oh my gosh, there's so many things in the pipeline. But chief among them, there's another book that'll probably be coming out in February, which will be tarot focused. So that's on the way. I'm also going to be putting together a writers community for inspiration and advice and motivation and all of that type of thing. All right, I'm going to give you the first scoop. There's only one other person who knows about this. All right, so I'm going to give you the exclusive scoop. I am designing a tarot deck.
Oh, how exciting.
Yes, with collage, digital collage. So that's in the works. So it's already in process. Again, it's like some days I work on it like every single day, and then I take a break, and then I go back to it. So timeline for that maybe the summertime to get it finished. Because you can't rush that type of thing. Like it's got to all flow and fit together. So
what I'm hearing is yet another form of what we were talking about earlier with, finding your voice, the expression, how you want it to show up, how you want it to feel. You'll just like with the cover, does that image speak to you? Yes or no? Does that message speak to you? Like, it's just showing up in a different package, but it's still another creative expression. It's another form of leveraging the skills that created the poems, that created the book. So I just love that you're showing how much creativity can, when you're open to that and you're open to expressing it and trusting your voice and trusting your intuition, what can come up. So I think that is so cool. Stella, where can people connect with you, and where can they get your books, and where can they get in the know of all of these new things that are coming out this year?
Well, if they go to my website, Stella Wilde with an E on the end.com, they can find me there, and they can get my book on Amazon. It's in Kindle format and also in a paperback format.
Awesome.
Oh, and also on my YouTube channel. I almost forgot about that. I'm on YouTube, Stella Wilde.
Awesome.
Where I do lots of readings and discussions about astrology, tarot, all that kind of thing.
Thank you so much. This has just been so much fun with you. Thank you so very much.
Oh, Jen, I really appreciate it. Thank you very, very much.